It's stinking.
Well, howdy, gang. Delighted and excited to be here. We are so happy and excited, ignited, and delighted. All of those things at the same time. We are the People's Panel. And hey, all right. Just delighted to be here, everybody. And today we're going to be talking about trustonomics. And here's the thing. Trust is waning. The latest studies show that trust is at a 78% all-time low in the United States. And that is not just the United States. So why is trust so critically important in HR, in the workplace, heck, in our lives? Who would like to start us off with why trust? The lovely, the talented, the amazing Miss Leslie.
I'll start us off. Am I echoing?
There you go.
Sound great, Leslie.
Okay, great. When we have trust, things go so much more smoothly. When we don't have trust, there's much more friction. Think about how fast you got to the airport you get on before 9/11. There was a lot of trust. We trusted the airport. We trusted each other. We trusted the flights. Took 15 minutes from the time I get dropped off to the time I get my seat. Now it's 2 or 3 hours. That's because there's cost when you have a lack of trust. The cost to the airport is all that reworking of the infrastructure. The cost to the airports is all that equipment. The cost to the airline, to the airport, is hiring thousands of TSA agents around the world. The cost to you is higher airline tickets and higher or greater amounts of your time. Now, that's just something about the friction that lack of trust causes. So how does that work in the workplace? In the workplace, if you trust your boss and you trust the organization, you could just get to work and get going. But if you don't, you're probably wondering what the heck's going on. You're talking to other people. What does this mean? Are we going to have a shutdown or a layoff? Are we merging? Are we acquiring? What's going on? So people are wasting time. They're wasting time because there's a lack of trust. So they're not performing at their peak levels. That's why trust is important to HR. You want to have a trusted organization so you have better performance. Handing it back to you, Dean.
Yeah, no, incredibly right. I mean, we all know the value and the cost in this example, the cost of mistrust or misalignment, and trust comes in all kinds of places and forms. We see it online every single day when we see people trying to pass off AI as real, or you see deep fakes. It's not just a movie myth anymore, and all of these kinds of things. How does that affect us in the workplace? And how does that affect us in our everyday choices we make both at home and in the workforce? HR needs to be deeply, profoundly aware of the cost and the advantages of trust and what we are referring to today as trustonomics, the economics of trust. Anybody?
I was going to say a fabulous book, Stephen M.R. Covey, really a world expert on trust. He's got a couple of books, but his book, The Speed of Trust, really ties back to what Leslie was talking about, how it slows everything down, how, the organization, how trust touches different components. Different components or different people touch to your business. Besides your teammates, your customers are affected by it. Your vendors are affected by it. The marketplace is affected by it, and on and on. And so, if you want a great resource, I recommend that one.
Right. We were talking about it this morning and in our mastermind call, and that which is what this is all spurned out of. And the idea that we all likely have that favorite server, regardless of the restaurant. Might be a truck stop, might be a 5 dining, 8-course experience. It might be any of those things. We have our favorite server who we trust, and they trust us to the degree that even like when we show up, they have our coffee or our tea or our half diet regular Coke all set and ready at the table before we even sit down. And all those, they know, are you going to have this or this? And they take care of you as if they know you. And see, trust is genocide, making up new words now. The genesis of relationships, relationships, the science, the art, the skill, the talent of literally falling in love over and over and over. Did I say over? I meant over and over and over. Choosing to elate with trust more effectively, more often, and more empirically in a way that really makes a massive difference. Anybody else?
Indeed. And I appreciate that, Dino. Here's something that comes to mind is I think all of us, anybody that's been in any kind of relationship is aware that trust is earned. And it sometimes takes a little bit of time, right? And going back to what Chris just said, that speed is important because, of course, you want to be able to establish that in any organization. And I think that is where culture comes in. So do you have a particular culture, which, of course, HR is heavily involved in establishing and maintaining and encouraging and even directing, so that an organization is able to address some of these things where mistrust comes in. Like we were talking about this morning, Chris nailed it on just this morning was super on point by saying it's fear. So if people are inside of an organization, they're at the water cooler, they're, in each other's offices, and here comes the conversations around what if. If an organization is earning that trust through the culture of the organization, establishing open communication to say, hey, we're going to talk about these things. We're going to be open and honest about it. And so that we're all on the same page as an organization, so that if people are starting to have these conversations, we can address them for one, or we're establishing leadership within our organization so that somebody at that point says, hey, this is what the organization is planning or is saying about this. And if we don't have an answer on it, let's go find out. But when that has to be earned, right? An organization has to allow their people to be able to come to them and ask those questions and feel comfortable that they can do that without putting themselves on the chopping block, if you will.
Right.
Yeah, I think the other component that really jumps in there when you start talking about culture is the authenticity that has to be allowed inside an organization. And when we start talking about introducing the AI component, then the AI component and authenticity gets real. There's a ton of synergy there because that's what everybody is worried about, right? When Leslie starts talking about trust and the AI scare factor is you get online, you start looking at things, and the first thing you start asking yourself is that real or is that fake? We are a big military household here, and the Army Navy game was a big one here in our household. There was a super cool picture of the top of a aircraft carrier, and it said Army versus Navy. First thing out of my husband's mouth was, that's AI. And ironically, we knew one of the guys that was on top of that aircraft carrier that day, and it in fact was not AI. But if you had not known and trusted one of the guys who had said, hey, I'm in the Y in Navy, you would have assumed that there was an artificial component to that image. So I think we have to all be in a situation where we have the culture, whether it's a recreational group or the group of us 5 or your culture inside your organization, where you trust that the information that's coming out is authentic. Even if we go to the business world, your intellectual property is saved and truthful. And then your customers, if we go one step further, trust that what you are putting out is real and honest and is authentic, so that they can continue to do business with you in a very honest way.
Absolutely. I agree 100 million %. And listen, don't get us wrong. Understand this clearly now. And that is that we trust more than we don't. I mean, if we didn't, we'd never sit down, because we trust that the chair that we sit on is going to support us and hold our weight and not crush under or fall apart. So trust is not, it's not a given, it's earned, because that chair in this example has been faithful to hold me up every time I sat in it thus far. Not to say that it will never fall apart, but that's what trust is. It is an earned component. And we're talking about trust in AI and what is real and what is fake. So, all right, here we're going to try a little experiment. Leslie, do me a favor. I've written down one word only.
Okay.
And I put it on this dry erase board. And here's what I'd like you to do, if you would be so very kind, is think of any one of the hundreds of thousands of words in the English dictionary. And I want you to put that word top of mind.
Okay.
And by the way, I'm going to tell you it's not trust. Okay. So before we go any farther, just to clear the air, do you have any idea what I've written down?
I have a guess.
What would you say? What do you? Okay, let's do it this way. How about if I said, just real quickly, yes or no? Do you know what the word is?
I don't know.
That's exactly right. Now, obviously, we're taking advantage of the conversation here, and that is that the idea is that trust is an earned component. Now, this team of folks, they trust that I'm not going to do anything to harm or hurt the conversation. Now, especially we're in the public forum where people can see us. I'm not going to embarrass anybody. I'm not going to hurt anybody. So I appreciate your trust and extending. I'm just curious now. What did you think the word would have been?
Communicate.
Communicate. Oh, very nice. Beautiful. So what are some of the AI solutions as we look at AI, and what are some of the good, better, best kinds of deliverables and ways we can improve trust in our collaboration and partnership with AI? Leslie, please.
So I think people don't, if you say you need a trusted culture, a trusting culture,
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think people think, oh, I don't know how to get that. What should I do to get that? And I would say you have to learn how to communicate. That's why I picked that word, in such a way that you're never catching them off guard. Like you walk into a room and say, oh, Dean, you didn't finish your work on time. So let's call you out right here in this meeting. You know, that makes you not trust me just right then. So managers need to communicate in such a way that they build trust over time. And some of the skills they don't have yet, but they're not hard to learn. Mm-hmm. Then, because it is replacing an existing skill, you need to practice. So you practice communicating in such a way that the other person isn't suddenly putting up their guard and, frightened that they don't know what's going to come next. Are you going to put them on a performance improvement plan? Are you going to shut down their operating unit? What's happening? As long as you've learned how to communicate in such a way that you're not frightening people, you're going to start building that communication and trust that you need for your organization to run smoothly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Following on communication, I was part of an organization that the leader would send out emails, and when he adopted the idea of using AI, the emails were inauthentic. I mean, it was everybody knew him, and we right away knew he didn't write this, and therefore we questioned immediately the trust, because would this even mean it? Does he back it up? Does he believe what's there? Because he just grabbed it off AI. It wasn't written in his style, didn't sound like him at all. And so then you questioned everything about the rest of the message. And so, real practical tip for anybody is using AI to help write your communications, which could be a great tool to help frame up communications. I use it a lot. It's excellent. But you need to make sure you take the next step and actually read it yourself. Make sure you're comfortable with it, that you believe in everything that's in that communication, and that you're not sending out something that you don't even really understand because you let somebody else, or in this case, something else, write it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I think that this is a really big one too, like the competence of AI and understanding what it's capable of and how to use it based on the job that you have. We have a client who has butt up against a huge AI issue inadvertently, with no ill intent, but it is going to cause a huge issue in their organization. And so it's understanding not only what it is, but how to use it, how to train their staff. And even I learned in the process of helping them get out of it, how to clear caches and how to make sure that, when we talk about using your AI and kind of like training the dog, like you would train your AI, also how to sever different threads inside your large language model so that one doesn't influence the other. And I think that this is the competence factor that we will be continuously in pursuit of, because large language models and AI have the ability to do so much. Chris, I know I was hoping you were going to mention it before I said something about it, but last week, because this is such a perpetual conversation, right? Like, I think that's another point of reference that's crucial here. The five of us and then some random other influencers step in here. We are constantly talking about this week to week, but you said, I think last week, the equation of trust equals competence plus character. And those three components are really what are constantly influencing the AI discussion at all times.
Always and forever. Go ahead.
Yeah, because you could have somebody that's, you trust, hey, they're a great friend, you trust them, you believe them, but they could be totally incompetent at the work they're supposed to be doing. And so that they're not really truly trustful in that way. So
Right.
the competence and character absolutely go together.
Yeah.
Or they can be super competent, but you may go, I wouldn't trust them with my wife or my life.
Right.
So those two things truly make somebody trustworthy.
Yep.
I think go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Dean.
No.
So interestingly, when that discussion came out and Chris brought that to the group and the discussion kind of bloomed that day, then in reference to this issue that my client was really struggling with, that was with no malice, right? And it ended up being a learning opportunity. That entire office had the ability to really go kind of into the IT nerd space, right? And really understand the clearing of the connections when we're working with these large language models, and they're connecting, right? And you start to understand, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. That's why it remembers that I like the color purple in every presentation it helps me build, right? That's why all my slide decks start to match. But then when they start to match, there's a point where I need it to disconnect. And that's exactly what happened to this client of mine. And so where does that character component, where she had no malice, she had no ill intent, come into frame? It was really kind of a scary moment for them.
Yeah. I had a revelation over the last couple of months. I have a friend who was using the new video models for AI and creating videos of himself doing various and sundry things, but it was clear he wasn't trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes, wasn't trying to, no malintent, any of those kinds of things. But I found myself the first couple of times I went, wow, that's kind of cool. Oh, that's tricky. That's neat. That's fun. And then as he started using these over and over and over and over in place of the human portion of it, again, with no malintent, just because it was easier or he thought it was cooler or whatever it was, I found myself becoming less trustful. More importantly, now you're just getting lazy. You're not even showing up for your own marketing efforts. And I literally had to block him for about 30 or put them to sleep or whatever you call that on social media for a period of time because I was getting frustrated. And I didn't think anything bad of him. It wasn't any of that. It was just that it was clear that it wasn't the human connection was null and void, was gone, because he was using this as the only marketing strategy. And he's doing great things, and he's making a difference in the world, and all those things are absolutely true. But I found myself getting frustrated by the overuse of this one media style channel, and I had to go back and say, you know what, I apologize. I reached out to the guy, say, apologize. I found myself, and here's some feedback that might be useful to you. But we don't even malintent, I mean, I use weird AI stuff all the time, but for a purpose. I'll have me with a big dragon with long hair, and I'll say, hey, are your marketing things medieval? And it's not clearly intended to do anything but make fun of myself and the potential bring awareness to a marketing infrastructure or something like that. But be careful. The overuse of it can be dangerous as well.
Indeed.
So you became jaded. You became jaded watching his videos, and so you just had to turn it off because it wasn't working for you. That's a problem.
Thank you. Good choice. Tim, you were about to say
marketing. Go ahead, Kat.
Tim, I was calling on you. Go.
Oh, thank you. I was going to, you mentioned marketing, and of course that's where it's used a lot right now, right? I mean, all of us are aware that the adoption has been pretty quickly with marketing agencies. I have a good friend that owns a marketing agency, and here's one of the ways that he's addressing this when we're talking about competence and character and the human side of this, and that is to have these conversations with his people. He knows that he has very competent people that are exceptional at what they do, that are, I'm sure, concerned about what this is going to look like long-term because of the way that AI is advancing and how the whole marketplace is throwing it around from a marketing perspective, saying, hey, this is the best place to use it. Here's all these tools. So what he's doing is he's just taking the time to be able to sit down with his team, which is about 12, maybe 15 max. So it's a pretty good size, it's a boutique agency, but they all are pretty tight. That's a good size group that probably knows a lot about what each other's doing. They work well together. He knows that he's got good people. It took him a long time to get them. And so he's saying, well, if we use this tool, let's talk about this as a group. And the first question they ask is why? So why are we even bringing this in? What's the point? Is it just because it's cool? You saw it at a conference. You went to a CMO conference, came back, and they said this is the best thing since sliced bread because they're selling the tool. So somebody's pitching it. Somebody wants you to use it. It might cost money. It might just be gathering it. Whatever it is, it potentially could be somebody else promoting something that might not have anything to do with the value or advancement of your business. So he asks him why. Why are we even having the conversation? We're going to take time to look at it. And then, is it worth it? That's the second one. Like, if we got our why figured out, is this worth it? Is the implementation worth it? Is it going to make a difference with client acquisition? Is it going to make a difference with taking care of our existing clients at a higher level? Or can we do that as people already very effectively by having conversation and doing electronic communication and knowing things about our clients and their business that AI doesn't know? But we can go back to some of these tools and say, well, now that we know what our client wants and we know the intimacy of their business and how it runs, well, we can use some of these tools. But again, if we're going to use them, we better know why, and we better know if it's worth it. So it's a good model. It seems to be working well for him. And of course, this changes all the time, but I think that demonstrates good leadership, but also just the character of the organization to say, we know it's here, but let's talk about it as a group and let's make decisions as a group, and then we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that there's always importance in remaining human when we're dealing with other humans and keeping it as a tool, right? Like that's what we're talking about here. I know we were going to share which platforms we're getting the most benefit from. And I think that that's one of the keys that we're kind of fighting against, even with my own clients here. They're each using such a different tweak or a different twist on the platform that works for them. And I think that's one of the evolving challenges as well, that can erode trust if it's new or it's evolving or nobody else is using it and they're not sure. And that component, again, Tim's exactly right. If you know what the client needs and you're keeping that at the forefront, then it's always going to end up being a positive interaction.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll tell you one of the platforms I use, and the reason why I like it, because it does include that trust level. consideration. And it's more of a, not exclusively, but it's more of a closed environment. In other words, unless I instructed otherwise, it only uses the source resourcing of information that I give it based on my content, based on my values, based on my beliefs and tools and products and, perspectives, etc. That's called Notebook LM. And by the way, it's free. I mean, there is a pro level, but you can use it for free, and it generates graphics and videos and all kinds of stuff, again, based on my content. So I'll create a report or something and then load it into this source as source material, and then ask it questions and have it create infographics or all kinds of other things. And it only takes the information that I give it. Now, do I use outside sources? Occasionally, when I know they're trusted sources or there's a citation to be made, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm excruciatingly, I'll say it again, excruciatingly careful about this trust component, because as Kat said earlier, and Leslie alluded to as well, trust is earned. It is not granted or gifted. It is earned, and it takes years and years and years and years and years to potentially earn, and seconds to explode or obliterate.
Yeah.
So that's my thought.
Yeah. Well, I love Notebook that Dean just mentioned, but I guess my main AI companion is Claude. Excuse me. Is Claude. So I use it a lot, but it has strengths and weaknesses. And that's the key thing about any of the platform. How does it work best for you? I find for like formulating policy, procedures, process, laying it out, being a thinking partner on all of that, it asks good questions. It helps with that. But then if I need a graphic to illustrate it, I found that, that's not its strength. So I'll jump to chat. And I'll take the content and say, okay, chat, turn this into, something that lays out the process, for instance. It does a much better job at that. So understanding how those tools are used. So, recently I'm laying out a process for our launch process for what we do in our work. And, that's exactly what I did. I had Claude help take everything I'd given it, put it back, and then now I'm taking it into chat to help me. Can you put this in a nice graphic that makes it look good, easy to understand?
I would second all of those things. I think those platforms are great for that. My clients specifically are using Copilot quite a bit because of the security that MS365 provides, and for the packages that will integrate inside their Microsoft packages. So Copilot was maybe a little late to the game, but they're doing some really nice things currently for the security perspective. So I really like what they're offering. For my legal clients, they are seeing some really great platforms pop up in that space. Lexis, Perplexity, and ironically, somebody just dropped into our chat, Perplexity's deep research, then import the deep research into Google Notebook. So I don't know whose connection that is, but well thought out comment. And those legal researches or research threads are not only allowed in most both federal, state, and local courts, but then again, they're learning to manipulate those briefings, and with good background, good searches, or good sourcing, you're able to minimize the amount of legwork that legal counsel has to do, and saves time, saves pricing, and maybe, I don't know, our courts could clean themselves up again. I don't know. Similar to examples that we've given in the medical world, where they're able to minimize, drug trials and things like that. So there's just so many. Leslie, do you have a few that you like?
I use Claude a lot, but occasionally I'll use, I love using Notebook LM for having it combine all the articles that I've written and spit out a summary, and here's the high points, and here's what you've missed, by looking at all of my body of work and saying, here's what you say, and here's what you've left out. So that's a useful one for me too. But mostly Claude, occasionally Notebook, occasionally chat.
I want to add on to what Kat had said, and it's that seeing a lot of organizations, at least that I'm talking to, where Copilot comes in, it's comfortable and it's trustworthy because it's part of an overall compliance. They've already accepted T's and C's and licensing with Microsoft, and it's embedded, and it's a tool that's right there. So it's on the single pane of glass that people are used to seeing. It's almost at this comfortability from an organization's perspective to say, here's a tool that we want to engage in. It's part of our compliance and policy and so on. It addresses and checks a lot of the boxes with trust, like from both the organization and the communication from the organization to their people to say, this one we're very comfortable with. So it just has the innate feeling because of it's under the umbrella with Microsoft. And I'm hearing more people using it. It wasn't that way, maybe 6 weeks ago, but it seems to be hearing, more of that lately.
Yeah, I mean, we're running out of time, but like earlier this morning, we were having a conversation about the owner of Claude, the developer of Claude, recently called for some kind of boundaries or rails to be put on from a legal perspective on AI as a whole. And as the developers of this type of technology, they are calling for boundaries, not boundaries because it needs to be restrained, but boundaries so that the growth of the technology can be used in good and has a direction. However, those platforms are going to continue to grow until those rails are put into place.
Yeah.
And I think that these organizations that we're all working with, both public and private sector, nonprofit, all of these places, it's not that they're turning their head to the fact that these issues exist. It is helping our employees learn and use them correctly while we remain compliant from an organizational standpoint, from all of these places, and how we guide them, in our consulting roles to help find the resources that help them the best. Even after those guardrails are put in place, this will continue to be an issue, and that's what we're trying to do here, I believe.
Exactly right. And here's the thing, we are rounding up on our time. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate you guys. And so delighted to be able to literally hang with some of the best here at our People's Panel, and that we get to challenge each other in all these considerations, whether it's HR or whether it's just, human connection in all aspects of our life. And that is the genesis of all that we do anyway, because no people, no success. But when we know, KNOW, when we know people, we then know success. And that's what this is all about. So we appreciate you for being here. Thanks so much. Any closing thoughts? Anybody last words of wisdom before we call it a day?
We're in the Northeast. I hope everybody's staying warm, and hopefully we'll see somebody at some HR seminars in the coming months.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Kat, take it away.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.